girls. What covenant? What is a covenant? A covenant is a contract, an agreement between different parties. You sign a contract and you take on yourself obligations, and the other party takes on himself or herself obligations. So when you get married, you have to have a marriage contract called a ketubah. It's okay. It's okay. It's very human today. It says, "Al tiftach peh." Don't open the. Don't give the negative side a good idea. Don't give them any ideas. But we're going to get heavy rains. It's the rainy season is coming. Hurricane season. Some of these storms start on the west coast of Africa and they come all over here. They hit Florida and Mexico and Louisiana. When I was going up in Toronto, we had Hurricane Hazel. Boy, did we have floods. So the humidity in the air is going to turn into rains. When it gets a little colder, that squeezes out the water. Anyway, what is a covenant? A covenant is this tremendous agreement that Hashem made with us, with the Jewish people as a whole, and we were all there. This week's parsha, very short parsha, second shortest parsha in the Torah. Next week's is the shortest. This one only has 30 psukim, 30 verses. And the first one is, you are all standing here today. Let's get it right. It's here. This is very, very important information, girls. One and two more pages and we could find there. That's how the parsha begins. Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to the whole Jewish people. How did he do that? It's hard to understand because there were many millions of them. There were 600,000 counted over the age of 20. That doesn't include their wives. So there's 1 million, 1.2 million right there, and their elderly parents, grandparents, and their children. You are all standing here today, like we say when we read the Tehillim. We didn't read Tehillim. We'll do that immediately. Standing strong. We are standing strong. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu says. You are all, after all we've been through. We left Egypt. We survived the crossing of the Red Sea. We received the Torah. We spent 40 years in the desert. We built the Mishkan, the tabernacle for God, the first version of the Holy Temple. All the Holy Temples, by the way, are just replicas on different scale of this tabernacle that they built and called the Mishkan as a dwelling place for God in the physical world. You lived through it, and you're all here today, he says. Kulchem, all of you. Lifnei Hashem Elokeichem, you're standing, all of you, before God, your God. Take this very personally. Moshe is speaking to you, and to me, and to all of us. Rashi is going to say it explicitly. Rosheichem, and he goes in order of their importance, from the heads of your tribes. There's like the princes of every tribe, the big tzaddikim, who are the leaders of each tribe. Rosheichem, Shivteichem, of the princes of your tribes. Zikneichem, your elders, those are the sages. Sheitreichem, your officers. Kol Ish Yisrael, every single Jewish person. Tapchem, your children. Neshechem, your wives. Begerachai, the converts, those who joined us. Asher Bekerev Machanecha. Mechetev Eitzecha, from your wood choppers. Adshoyev Meimecha, the bottom of the totem pole, the water carriers. Very, very hard job, carrying these heavy buckets of water. And it lists here 10 categories. 10, again the number 10. What does Rashi tell us on this? When it says kulchem, meaning every one of them, every one of you, says Rashi, this means literally every single Jewish person who ever lived or ever will live. We were all standing there at Mount Sinai, and we entered into a covenant with God at Mount Sinai when we said, we will do it. He went to every nation in the world. I said this once before in this class. He went to every nation in the world and said, do you want my Torah? And they all answered the same thing. They all said, what's in it? Left out the last two words. What's in it for me? But what's in it? And they didn't like what they heard. Not for us. Not for us. That's not our nature. Either we're warriors or we're business people or whatever we are. Adventurers. They didn't want it. Came to the Jews who were enslaved in Egypt, the descendants of the fathers and the mothers, from a great family, but they were enslaved and they were suffering. He said, do you want my Torah? I said, yes, 100%, yes. Didn't even ask what's in it. Then they said, well, we'll learn it. We'll learn it. He said, you don't know what's in it. He said, we'll learn it. We'll study it. And later sages, the Medrash says in the name of the sages, spoke in the name of God, God said, who revealed this secret to my children? Who revealed this secret? What's the secret? The secret was to say, we'll do it, not what's in it. What does that imply? That the commitment to do the mitzvahs of the Torah is higher than even to learn it. Okay. So we were all there. We all entered into this covenant, and God promised us all kinds of wonderful things. And He said, "This is what is the nature of this covenant?" It says in this week's parsha that we're reading this week. It repeats the covenant that was made at Mount Sinai when we all said, "We'll do it," and Hashem said, "Good. I'll be your God and you'll be my people." That's when we became a Jewish people. That's when we got an Hashem. That's when we became something different from every other living creature in the world. And this was repeated here before on the last day of Moshe's life, that every single Jewish person, not just the millions that were with him, it's amazing stuff. Not just the millions that were with him, but every single Jewish person who ever lived until then from the family, and every person who ever would live, every Jewish person, man, woman, and child who ever would live, including converts, we all stood there at the edge of the Jordan River, about to enter into Eretz Yisrael, and we entered into this covenant. We said, God said, from my part, I will be your God, and from your part, you will be my people. Meaning, I will never exchange you for any other people, ever, ever, ever. Never. And we promised we would never exchange Hashem for any other God. And we're still holding by it. And we spoke yesterday briefly on the subject of the neshama. And the whole question of when a person converts to Judaism, how do they acquire a neshama? And the opinion that I personally favor, this makes more sense to me, is that the conversion process in Judaism is an uncovering the neshama that's latent in a non-Jewish person. Very unique. And so the Torah speaks about a convert who converted. In other words, the person, man or the woman, is called a convert before they convert. In the conversion process, which we all know, if someone wants to convert, the rabbis put them through the ringer. Why? Because they want to really test them to see if they must mean it. How else can you draw a holy neshama into a non-Jewish body? But really, that's just because we're people. And we don't know things like that. Tzaddikim know. A person passes by the Rebbe, he gives a look at you, he knows if you're a Jewish or not. You know, there are a lot of stories. There was a certain shliach, he had a supporter, he loved coming to the Chabad house. But he was a kohen. He was a kohen. And he fell in love with a divorcee, a woman who was divorced. A kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee. And he was a big supporter, so the shliach didn't want to just brush him off. Didn't know what to do. Man didn't want to give up his girlfriend. He wanted to marry her. But he wasn't allowed. So I don't know what to tell you. Let's go to the Rebbe. Maybe the Rebbe will have a good piece of advice. As they went by dollars, the shliach said to the Rebbe, this man is a kohen, he wants to marry a divorcee, what should he do? The Rebbe said, call his mother. His mother? Rabbi Groner took him into his office. He said, Ma, I'm by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, I should call you. Am I a kohen? She says, now I remember my sins. When your father died, I was so concerned for you. Now who's going to take care of you? You don't have a father. I made you a kohen. Well, you'll have an aliyah. People make a fuss over you. They'll let you bench first. They'll always, you're not a kohen. How'd the Rebbe know? Just looked at him. Could see. A similar story about a girl from Australia who used to watch Holocaust documentaries and cry. And she wanted to convert, and the shliach there in Australia, what's his name, just slips out of my mind, didn't want to convert her on the basis of her response to documentaries on the Holocaust. She was, I want to be Jewish. Now, I'm not getting the details straight exactly what happened first, what happened second. The Rebbe, she wrote a letter to the Rebbe. Then I don't know what happened. Then the shliach came to New York, and or he got a letter from the Rebbe. What's with that Jewish girl from Melbourne? That girl. How do I know she was Jewish? She was Jewish. Once the Rebbe said that, then they did further investigations, and the girl's mother said, yes, after the Holocaust, I wanted nothing to do with Judaism. I married a non-Jew, and we raised our children Christian. She was traumatized. So they said to the Rebbe, how do you know? The Rebbe, Chabad, like I spoke yesterday about the derech of the Baal Shemska, derech is with miracles, and the derech of Chabad is not with miracles. We play down the miracles, but they happen all the time. So they said to the Rebbe, how did you, as a miracle, how did you know she was Jewish? He said, because a non-Jewish person couldn't have written that letter. Could not have written such a letter to be so deeply moved by what she perceived through them. People see these documentaries and not urged to convert. And this is what Rashi says in the Chumash yesterday. The word kulchem means you were all there when Moshe entered us into the covenant. That was the second covenant. The first covenant was actually the third. The second covenant was by Mount Sinai. The first covenant was with Abraham. The covenant between the pieces. When Hashem entered into a covenant with Abraham, you know how they did in those days? You used to take an animal. It may sound like cruel, but it's not. They took an animal and cut it in half. So they would have cut it in half anyway, they're going to eat it. What do you think we do when we eat an animal, eat meat? They cut it in half, and they have two halves of the animal, on this side and that side. And the two partners who are entering into a covenant together, they go through together. The middle, it's a ancient symbolic gesture of unification. Here in America, what do? In America, the American Indians, each of them splits their finger, and the blood, they become blood brothers. Same idea. Same idea. Only we don't split the blood. But the Goyim, the idol worshiping Goyim in ancient Canaan, Philistine, shows you what kind of people they were. Their priests, their idolatrous priests, they used to also do the same thing, only they did it with fire. They entered into a covenant through fire. And they used to make little children walk through this fire. And very often they get burned. And they sacrificed children to the fire, to their god called the Moilech. You'll read about it in the Chumash over the years. But this is what it was. This was a barbaric covenant. Rabbi Akiva testifies, it's brought in a Rashi. He once saw a goy sacrifice his father to a dog, tied him up and sicked his dog on him. The dog ate him. They had a lot of territory. And that's why Hashem says, you're going into this country, stay away from the idolatrous practices of these people. They are an abomination. So we entered into this covenant with the one God of the world, visible, source of all goodness and life. And kulchem, we were all there, and Rashi says very, very clear, the sages teach us, every single person who would ever convert in the future entered into that covenant. So that bears out the idea that a convert who converts is already Jewish. They're Jewish. They're born Jewish in a non-Jewish body, and their conversion is a revealing of that depth. So there's a saying that where a Baal Tshuva stands, righteous people cannot stand. Because they have a merit, a Baal Tshuva has a merit that even a righteous person who's always been religious does not have. What's that? That when you do a mitzvah with something, you elevate it. You elevate the life in it, and it becomes included in its source and godliness. So when a non-Jewish person converts, well, Baal Tshuva returns to the ways of Judaism, either because he knew and left them, that's the real meaning of Baal Tshuva. He was brought up religious and he left, he went away, and he comes back as a Baal Tshuva. Then there's a new version of Baal Tshuva, a person who knows nothing about Judaism and somehow meets the right shliach or has a friend who takes him to the Chabad house, whatever, they get turned on to Yiddishkeit and they become completely religious and very sincere. And it's very strong in their Yiddishkeit. And children of families who are brought up religious sometimes don't have the strength. And they get distracted and they want to know what's it like not to keep Shabbos, heaven forbid, and so on and so on. I'm sure you know families. It's a big nisoyan. It's a very great difficulty for such a family and difficulty for the child. The child is having some a religious trauma. And we need a lot of love and compassion. Certainly, getting angry at the child isn't going to help anybody, right? Nobody ever became religious because of anger, because they were getting beaten up, so psychologically or even physically. So, but the Baal Tshuva, when the person returns to the ways of Torah, all the negative things that they did unwittingly, like not keeping Shabbos and not keeping kosher and so on, they get elevated. Gets elevated. And the negative, we'll learn this in chapter 7 of the Tanya, that the negative experience then becomes like the fire, the fuel for the person's religious behavior in the future. So a person who didn't keep kosher and then undertakes to keep kosher will be much stronger in the observance of kashrus than a person who's brought up in a kosher home. And even more so, a convert, so that retroactively the Baal Tshuva elevates and rectifies the life in all the non-kosher things that he or she did, because now that becomes the motivation, the fuel within the religious observance of Torah in the Baal Tshuva. That the Baal Tshuva becomes very, very strong in most cases. Very, very strong. I'm not going to bring about other experiences, but applying this to a convert, Baal Tshuva elevates things that were done improperly, because now he or she is doing them properly. So the Baal Tshuva, who doesn't eat milk and meat anymore, elevates the milk and meat by not having them. And the person brought up in a religious home never had milk and meat together, and it's no big deal. And the convert, applying this to the convert elevates something that the most religious person cannot do, which is that he or she elevates a non-Jewish body. And becomes a Jewish body, holy Jewish body. So that's why the convert who converts is really, the Torah commands us over and over and over again to be kind and considerate, compassionate and helpful to the convert, because you were converts yourselves in the land of Egypt. That's our story. All right, chapter 20 of Tehillim. We already had our class. Still didn't get back to that. Hasidus in general and Hasidus Chabad. Does everybody understand that point, though? We have covered it. Hasidus in general is awakening the latent spark of Judaism, the Pintele Yid in the heart of every Jew. It was initiated by the Baal Shem Tov, but the Talmud speaks about Rabbi Chia 2,000 years, 1,700 years before the Baal Shem Tov, who did the same thing. He went out into the boondocks where there were villages. Imagine when the Jews came into Israel, they didn't have cell phones. There was no communication. They're living here and there and everywhere. No education, no chadarim. Illiterate children growing up barefoot in the mountains. And he set out to encounter these small groups and to educate them and teach them. And it's a whole story. I'll tell you a different time. Golo Meiser Rabbi Chia. They said, great is the accomplishment of Rabbi Chia, what he did, Rabbi Chia. That because of what he did, Torah will never be forgotten from Israel. Never. I have to tell you a little story, but it's not time. But he was doing it. He was reaching out to Jews who didn't have a connection with our Jewish heritage and bringing them in. So it is really an ancient tradition, and that's from the Baal Shem Tov. From Chabad, the Rebbe adds to this. We're going to learn that a person has 7 emotive characteristics from the heart, emotions. The Baal Shem Tov's approach is emotional. And we have an emotional attachment, a great love of the tzaddik. How can you cling to God? You ever saw him? We saw what he did. We saw what he does. The Jews who left Egypt actually saw Hashem. But from the Baal Shem Tov nowadays, we love the tzaddik, and we connect ourselves to the tzaddik, and that connects us to God. He connects us to God. He's not interested in being a God. He's interested to connect us to what we really are. The Alter Rebbe took this to the next level, which is the level not of heart, but of mind over heart. And this is like the first fundamental principle of Hasidus, is that whatever you feel has to come under the approbation, I can't think of a better word, of your intellect. Your mind has to agree that this is the right thing to be doing. And how do you get? You have to learn. It takes effort. It's not a different kind of inspiration altogether, but much more lasting. Because emotional inspiration can come and can go. But knowledge, you know something, it doesn't go away so quick. Now, chapter 20. We have to say chapter 20 before we can start the lesson. Okay. Everybody got their chapter 20? Upper right-hand corner. Lam Natseya Mizbal Edavi. Yan Chalna Bim Tsar Yisadev Hashem Ade. Shem Elohe Yanke. The name of God of Jacob should support us. Yishlach Ezraham B'Kodesh, and should send help from the holy chamber. Umitziye Yisadeka, and from Jerusalem he should give us strength. Yizkor Kol Michaisecha, he should recall all our heartfelt offerings that we brought to him. We gave up something that we could have used ourselves to bring an offering to express our gratitude. Vo'ilasacha, burnt offerings, Yadashna Selah, should be graciously received. Yiten L'Hohil Vavecha, he should grant your heart's requests. V'chol Yamale, and enable you to fulfill all of your good resolutions. Let us rejoice in your salvation, Hashem. Ubashem Eloheinu Nidgel, and we will raise the banner of our God on high. Yamale Adonai Kol Mishalei Secha. Hashem should fulfill all your heart's requests. Ata Yodaiti, now I know, says King David, Ki Vaishia Adonai Mashiach, Hashem will save his anointed one. Yanehu Mishmei Kodshe, and answer him from his holy heavens. B'gubures, with might, Yesha salvation, Yamine, from the right hand. Elev Rechav Elev Asusim, they come with chariots and cavalry. V'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu Nazkir, we come with the name of God on our lips. Hema Karu v'nafalo, they stumbled and fell. V'anachnu kamnu, we stood up at Mount Sinai, we stood up at the Jordan River, v'nisaydad, and we are stalwart. Adonai Hishamelech Anenu Yimkarenu. Just way of summary, the three covenants where Abraham entered into a covenant with God at the covenant between the pieces. Every newborn Jewish boy is entered into the covenant on the day of his circumcision. The Jewish people of Mount Sinai entered into the covenant with God that they would, and his Torah, and before going into Israel, Moshe Rabbeinu entered the whole Jewish people into the covenant with God that we would be his people and he will be eternally our God. So how come the base of Mikdash was destroyed? He didn't cease to be our God when he destroyed the base of Mikdash, and when he cast us into exile, and all the suffering that the Jewish people have gone through because we have a Yetzer Hara, because it's, because we fall in, give it. So he didn't say that he wouldn't. On the contrary, the Torah is full of very clear details of what will happen if we don't keep our part of the bargain. But nowhere does it say that they will exchange us for different people, or that we will ever not be his people. That's it. Today. Ah, how fortunate we are. Asher Yeshe V'Secha. How fortunate we are. How fortunate is the people that Hashem is their God. What did we deserve? What did we do to deserve it? I don't know. Maybe our great grandparents looked down, put in a good word for us. You know, they say, it's a Hasidic saying, you know why people were created with earlobes? Why do we need earlobes? There's two reasons. One reason is not a Hasidic reason, it's a Niggleidic reason, it's a revealed reason. So if someone says something you don't want to hear, you cover up. You have ear covers. Hasidic reason is so the Rebbe can pull you out of the mud. When we go astray and get covered with all kinds of spiritual mud, you can't. A person cannot free himself from prison. You need someone to get you out. So they take away your earlobes and pull you out. Story, parable brought in the Tanya at one point. Out there, imagine a person so down on his life, so down in life. He has no place. He's sitting in the garbage dump outside of the city, feeling miserable. It says, imagine a king comes by with his royal entourage. He comes over and he picks up this person, embraces him, and takes him back to his palace, washes him off, gives him clean clothes, takes him to be with him in his private room because really it's his son. It's his own son. How would this person feel? How would he not feel great love for such a king? Good, sure everybody should be written down for a good, healthy, wonderful year. A lot of good news from the Jewish people at large and from every single one of you. Families. Tomorrow we're going to learn. Everybody's here. Everybody didn't come today. Everybody's here. Just we lost one student along the way. Okay. Thank you. Lady is here. Wonderful thing.
know where the coin bag is? The coin bag. Yeah.